Hello, everyone. Come one, come all, come in general. This is Top Knot Analysis, your favourite YouTube video essayist reviewer talking man on the YouTube's Reddit's Tickety Talks and Tumblrinos. And I'm coming at you not alive, but still hopefully in a pleasant position for you specifically. I have been feeling a certain type of way about my creative output recently, and I really want to do more reviews. I really do. At the same time, I haven't had much time, and so I did come as a compromise to this decision that, hey, okay, I may not have enough time to watch and rewatch a bunch of stuff to make a bunch of reviews, but I do have nostalgia and memories and stuff. So yeah, and that combined with me seeing a Kill James Bond highlight of the three hosts' favourite movies, that got me thinking, you know what? I'm just going to talk about 50 random good-ass movies that I think are damn good in my opinion. So yeah. Without further ado, let's get engaged. Number 1, we have City of God, which is a bit of an obvious one for anyone who follows the proper Top Knot Analysis channel. Yeah, it's a damn good movie. It's very beautiful and also very dramatic, but also very dark and intense and suspenseful and also fun and also cool and also nice, and the beaches and the crime lords and the crime law and Lil J and the real villain being society and stuff. Yeah, that film was recommended by my film studies teacher at the time, and yeah, God bless her. Miss Walker, shout outs to you. I hope you're still, teaching kids that good shit, to put it mildly. Next up, we got 9 to 5, with Dolly Parton. Not a huge amount to say, other than it was a really funny, cute film about Dolly Parton and her gal pals experiencing a multiple sexisms, to be fair, actually, but then proceeding to, get their revengeance by hog-tying the big bad sexist man, and, being a very surprisingly scathing critique of, of corporate fluff and inequalities in the workplace and the like. So yeah, overall, it was it's just a good movie. It's just cute. It's cute and nice and fun and funny and stuff. Next up, we got The Last Holiday. I'm just going to refer you to my highlight from The Walking Dead Michonne when I started randomly glazing that movie. But needless to say, it's very funny and very moving, especially if you skip a certain segment of the film at the beginning, but honestly, even from the beginning where everything's a little bit quirked up, it's just a feel-good, gay old time. So, yeah. Next up, we got Ikiru, which, again, mentioned in the Michonne short, but basically it's a more, I guess, thoughtful, ponderous, dramatic and existential version of what The Last Holiday would be. And, okay, major spoilers incoming for The Last Holiday and Ikiru, but the ending of Ikiru includes the fact that the main character does actually die. And I think if I were to watch The Last Holiday and Ikiru back to back, I think there'd be a lot of good analysis to be had comparing those movies, considering in The Last Holiday, it's eventually revealed, oh, Queen Latifah thought she was going to die, but actually the doctor made a mistake and she's actually fine. And so contrasting that, which is in a more comedic style, versus Ikiru, which plays it a lot more straight. That's certainly an interesting parallel, I suppose. Next up, we got Coming to America. So, yeah. Okay, and I'm going to mention this in tandem with another film. I put it Trading Places and Coming to America, not because they take place in the same universe, although, yes, that is pretty dope. I haven't seen Coming to America 2, but I have seen the first, 10-15 minutes of it. Might finish it someday. Either way, Trading Places and Coming to America are really damn good. Eddie Murphy being a funny man, in Coming to America, Eddie Murphy's delivery and portrayal is a lot more, oddly enough, toned down and, I won't say not deadpan, but he starts off the film a lot more, composed and put together, and part of the comedy is, is that he slowly becomes more, excitable as certain plot developments happen. Whereas Trading Places, oddly enough, kind of follows the slightly opposite route. Not in terms of him becoming more of a funny man or less of a funny man, but in terms of Eddie Murphy starting off as a possibly homeless, bummish street rat, then becoming adopted into high society, and and becoming a more shrewd and crafty businessman, as opposed to Coming to America, which is about a high and mighty, prince wishing to bring himself down to the level of the poors, so yeah. I guess that's something I never noticed about those films, it's like a dialectical synthesis, or dialectical, not synthesis, but dialectical. It's a dialectic is what I'm getting at. I don't know, watch the Philosophy Tube video on it or something. Anyway. Next up, we got All About My Mother. And again, okay, fair warning. Most of these films that I'm talking about, even though I love them, and I've seen them, and, I have seen them a very long time ago, so some of these I'll have, more fuzzy memories than others. But in terms of how I remember All About My Mother, again, recommended by my old film studies teacher, shout out to her, hell yeah. I remember it being, very darkly funny in certain ways, but also having a lot of heart, and so it is a very film studies-ass movie, it is very, dramatic and portentous in certain ways, but also it's very cute and, and, heartwarming in certain ways as well, and also, a while ago, back in the day, I made a post on Snapchat about, various of my favourite fictional queer characters for Pride Month a number of years ago. And, lo and behold, one of the characters was Agrado, from All About My Mother, who's a trans lady, and her monologue is really funny and also very moving. I highly recommend. Next up, we got Ran. Again, another film studies-ass movie. I love it, but it is very, it is very, balls to the walls. Not in terms of action, although it does have some really epic action, but it's very balls to the walls, at least from what I remember of it being, in terms of whatever's happening feels very, hefty and meaningful. There's some scenes where that feels just as impactful as the scene with, just horrifically realizing, oh shit, they took away my stuff. So, yeah, basically that. For those of you who don't know, Ran is a film by Akira Kurosawa, same as Ikiru, by the way, and, Ran is a sort of, ancient Japan samurai-era retelling of the story of King Lear. So, yeah. Next up, we got Blade Runner. Okay, again, another film studies ass movie, not in that, it's, like, very deep and artsy, although yes it is, but also because, again, my film studies teacher recommended it. I swear this won't be a this won't be a theme. I swear I have other films. There are 50 films on this list. Anyway, main thing I find memorable about the Blade Runner is that, my film studies teacher said, oh yeah, this is just the best sci-fi thing. Be sure to watch it and let me know if you also think it's the best sci-fi thing, or if you think there are any sci-fi things better than it. I bet you won't. And, yeah, I think it was, either director's cut or one of the cuts. At the very least, it was the cut without the narration, so that's good. And on a related note to that, very much recommend the video by H. Bomber Guy about art in VHS and like director's cuts, and he talked about like various cuts of Blade Runner and that. I suppose briefly answering that question again in terms of, is Blade Runner the best sci-fi thing? I mean, it's definitely up there. I'd have to think a lot longer and harder to, like, wang jangle through my brain if there was any other better sci-fi films out there. But yeah, Blade Runner is definitely at the very least top 5 or 3 worthy, I suppose. And who knows, maybe some more of those sci-fi things will come back later in this list, who knows. Next up, we got Watership Down. I'm specifically talking about the, I know that there were multiple versions of that book adapted to film. The main one I'm talking about is the one with the inexplicably Nigerian crow, and also, vicious, uncensored violence. So, yeah. I remember that being very interesting and, interesting and portentous in a way, but also in a kind of cute package that also made it more engaging and strange in a way. A friend of mine, took a couple tokes of the marijuana smoke, and, allegedly. I wish I mentioned that film to them when they said, do you recommend any shows or films to watch when getting, when getting high and kited away into the great unknown? Like, there is a number of scenes in that film that are very tripped out. So, yeah. Next up, we got Jack and the Beanstalk. This is kind of a weird one. I think it was from either Good Films Entertainment or Dick, as in DIC, not, that was like an old, animated film of Jack and the Beanstalk, and the giant in that always talked like, oh, shiny, shiny, shiny. There's a donkey, not Eeyore, but yeah, there's a donkey in it, and a little like sassy lost child in a blue dress. So yeah. And the Cockney Crows. They were quite funny. Leftovers, robots in disguise. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, hand in hand with Jack and the Beanstalk, I also got to the Ten Commandments. And, Ten Commandments is kind of, swiveled up into 2 films right now, because there are 2 film adaptations of the Ten Commandments I remember. One is, the one that most people, I'm assuming, are more familiar with, the live-action one with the guy who looks like he just came off the set of Ben-Hur, and, Yul Brynner was also in it, and he was pretty engaging. The other adaptation of the Ten Commandments film I remember was, again, another weird-ass, like, animated VHS version of it, and the only, like, main memorable thing I can remember of it was that version of Ramses had a villain song, and the main hook was, "When you're a king, there's not a thing you cannot do." And, yeah, that sounds relatively relevant considering the political implications. Yeah, oh dear me. And you know what, speaking of political implications of stuff from the Bible, the next film I listed down is also The Prince of Egypt. And part of why I wanted to mention The Prince of Egypt is because I like that film a lot. It's really good. It is probably the better, like, biblical DreamWorks film. I say the reason it's the better one is because the first film that I saw with that art style was, what's it called? It was one that was an adaptation of the Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat story. So, yeah, that was the one I saw first, and then I eventually found out about The Prince of Egypt later, and that was why it was really cool and, interesting to compare. So, yeah, both are damn good films. Moving on. Next up, we got Some Like It Hot. Not a fat lot to say, other than it's a damn good movie. It's very old-timey, it's very funny. I was going to say something, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, also Marilyn Monroe is radiant in it. Take me back to that time period. She could do things to me specifically. And yeah, what else about Some Like It Hot? I mean, that ending, Yas, Slay, Mademoiselle, and I was going to say something else about Some Like It. Oh yeah, now I remember. If memory serves me right, I think Some Like It Hot was the first live-action film that I saw. Either the first live-action film or the first black and white film I saw. One of those two. Next up, we got Rambo with the Ram Bussy. Ruger, do not kill me. But yeah, again, damn good film. I've seen the first, I want to say 3 or 4 Rambos. At the very least of the ones I definitely remember seeing. I definitely remember seeing the first 3. So yeah. And yeah, it's just good. It's a dark tale of a man's traumas coming back to haunt him in the forms of demons from his own homeland, and how his damage from fighting the good fight, quote unquote, led to him, reacting badly, let's say. And it's a very almost semi-bittersweet tragic tale of shenanigans. So yeah, and then by the time the other films were, well, that's neither here nor there because I don't remember them as vividly. But yeah. Next up, we got No Retreat, No Surrender. And the reason I mentioned this film is because I first found out about it through, there was this, documentary I saw a long time ago called Top Fighter, and in it it was basically like a short, not short, it was an hour long, but it was an hour or 2 hour long, sort of editorial listicle of the top martial arts actors in cinema, one of which being Jean-Claude Van Damme. And Jean-Claude Van Damme, besides Bloodsport, also, I believe, got his start in No Retreat, No Surrender, because he plays the villain in that film, this evil, I want to say Russian kickboxer or something, and the famous scene from that movie with him being him in the boxing ring doing the splits on the ropes. So yeah, that was pretty cool to see. And also overall it's it's a bit hokey and cheesy, but like it's good 80s action cheese. So yeah, I recommend for that. The main character is a little white boy who gets taught kung fu by the ghost of Bruce Lee for some reason, but it's still pretty entertaining. And yeah, I say that as if I'm angry that that was the case. I do find that quite funny, but also, is it the ghost of Bruce Lee? Because, I mean, it did kind of imply that maybe this guy was just going crazy from getting his ass beat, and his own hallucinations just made him make-believe into fighting that. Who knows? Next up we got Never Back Down. Again, this is it is an interesting film, and I think there's multiple in the series, but I only remember properly seeing the first one. It's basically an MMA sort of early 2000s flavored version of The Karate Kid. It's about this dude who gets picked on by some MMA clique in his high school. He has a crush on one of their girlfriends, and then he gets trained by some big dick martial arts man to beat the bullies, and stuff happens. So yeah, but yeah, I remember Never Back Down being quite good, even though I haven't seen it for yonks. Next up we got Bloodsport. I mean, that's a more, like, standard... it is good. It's really fun. You know, it's Jean-Claude Van Damme just playing a good boy protagonist man who, you know, enters a tournament and wins eventually, and then he kicks that ass. And speaking of kicking that ass, like, there's a moment after, like Van Damme has a brief post-coital scene with a lady in that film. You get a brief glimpse of the man's booty side, and let me say, yes, please. And I'll leave it at that. Anyway. Fist of Fury. Again, interesting, fun, sort of action Bruce Lee films in general. Part of why I found it interesting was because I think it was either the or one of the first films I saw that had, like, a sort of, like, sad-ish or, like, unambiguous ending, specifically with Bruce Lee's character running up and, and being shot, and, like, going out like that. And so, it's like, wow, that was real emotional rollercoaster land town. As a wee lad. So take that how you will, I guess. Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noon. I put these both here because I actually watched Shanghai Nights first when I was a wee lad, and then found out about Shanghai Noon, even though Shanghai Nights is the sequel, but... well, you know, whatever. Basically, Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson sort of, buddy cop, quote unquote. I mean, they're not cops, but they might as well be. Basically I want to say 18th, 19th century buddy cop thing. In Shanghai Noon, they're cowboys, and in Shanghai Nights, they're in England, which is why it's Shanghai Nights. So, yeah. The main funny parts I remember from both films include, Shanghai Noon, there's the bath scene, where they have a drinking game. That was quite cute and funny and stuff. There's also a fight with, like, a horseshoe on a rope, so that was pretty neat. Shanghai Nights is the curved sword fight, where Jackie Chan is trying to kill Rathbone, one of the main villains. Speaking of which, one of my favourite dialogue exchanges was Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan's character are dressed up in disguise. Jackie Chan is dressed as the Maharaja of Nevada, and and Owen Wilson is okay, you just gotta give your head a little bobble like this, get in character, good show, cheerio, cheerio. Now what'll you do when you see Rathbone? Kill him. So yeah. And I was his salmon don't swim upstream. He shoots blanks. He cannot be trusted. You gotta pass on the knowledge sometimes, never trust a man who can't shoot no blanks. Anyway, okay, right back to back with those films. We also have Snake and the Eagle's Shadow, another young era Jackie Chan. It was a good one. It is a good one. It's a great one even. Jackie Chan just Sparrow destroys the nutsack of a dude who looks like Jesus. But putting that aside, I actually wish I mentioned the Drunken Master sequel. That was a really good one. It was Legend of the Drunken Master. And the theme song for that film slaps. I can't believe I just ended up wang-jangling myself into talking about a whole ass different film from talking about one other different film. Okay, but yeah, moving on. Where on earth was I specifically? Kill Bill. Damn good film. Does what it says on the tin. Really solid revenge action, occasional comedy in places, but mostly by being very over the top and #stylish. So yeah. And also, I think it was a video essay by either Accented Cinema or some other YouTuber that was talking about the context around the historical context around Kill Bill and how it's meant to be a metaphor for the ghost of Bruce Lee haunting his legacy in a revenge tale. Mostly based on the fact that the main villain is played by David Carradine, who plays in the series Kung Fu, which was an old action show back in ye olden days that was initially meant to star Bruce Lee. However, Bruce Lee lost on the role to David Carradine. So yeah, there's certainly that. Next up, we got Enter the Dragon. Again, damn solid film. Bruce Lee also goes on a revenge tale, and it's funny that I put it next to Kill Bill then. Bruce Lee also goes on a revenge tale. There's some damn good action. Bullshit, Mr. Handman! And, and also another solid core memory of mine with regards to Enter the Dragon is, I first watched, not the remastered, but the extended version, and, at the beginning of the film, there's, a brief, an introduction by Linda Lee, Bruce Lee's, wife, and she talks about some of the context around the film and Bruce's life and stuff for briefly before the film starts, and there's also some deleted scenes in the film as well. So yeah, that's pretty solid. Next up, we got the Karate Kid series. Scalding hot take coming at you live. I prefer the remake to the original, oddly enough. not to be dissing on anyone, like, again, like, if you're into anything Karate Kid adjacent, I highly recommend watching both films, because they're both really, really good in their own ways. But, yeah, personally, oddly enough, I prefer the Jaden Smith one with Jaden as protagonist for whatever reason. So, yeah. I guess also maybe part of the bias is that the action in the Jaden Smith Karate Kid was just better than most of the action in the first Karate Kid. But, yeah, again, both films are really cool. Highly recommend. So, yeah. Next up, we got the Pink Panther films, and I don't remember a fat lot about them other than they were funny, and also the running gag with the Kato character. Again, I promise this won't be a theme, but I am very much noticing, the first few films I've been talking about, like, Bruce Lee, and, and how, and the legacy of Bruce Lee, the fact that there's a character called Kato in the Pink Panther films, much like how there's Kato in the Green Hornet. So, yeah, specifically the running gag of Inspector Clouseau hiring a Chinese assassin to train him by attempting to kill him, and so he can be better fighter, I suppose. So, yeah. And on a related note, it's giving Batfink. Yeah, y'all remember Batfink? Batfink and his trusty sidekick? It's his sidekick. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Batfink and Kung Fu. That was his name, Kung Fu. It was either Kung Fu or Karate. Hey, Hollywood, you're into remakes and shit? Make a gritty Batfink. I dare you. I double dare you. It could be like, basically think, what if Rocket Raccoon was Batman? Yeah. That could be interesting. And you know what? Have the karate dude played by Kihei Kwan, why don't you? That would really bring things full circle for the man, Anyway. Okay, next up we got West Side Story. Both of them, because they're both really good. And if memory serves me right, West Side Story was the first film I cried at. So yeah, very good. I'll even say I slightly prefer the Spielberg remake even, in large part because, I've forgotten the character's name, but, the main guy from, I forget if the Sharks are the Puerto Rican or the American gang, but, the main leader of the Puerto Rican gang in West Side Story, like, I feel like his reasoning for, like, wanting to just absolutely annihilate, Mr. Protagonist Man is a lot more compelling in the remake than it is in the original film. Because, it's almost, not to access my inner debate lord on it to a degree, but in the original West Side Story, it just felt like, he just hates him because he hates him, and because he can't see past the divide in the gangs. It works well enough, but it's still very easily a wrong. It's a very easy out for him to be, wrong, but also I get it. Whereas, in the remake, they explicitly make it more like him. They explicitly make it more so that he's coming from a place of, of questioning protagonist man's sincerity. In terms of him thinking, what, do you think just because you're dating a Puerto Rican girl that all of a sudden everything's just magically airy-fairy between us? and that you think that, that all the racisms are gone magically just because you've got yours and I've got mine. Well, guess what, lad? I think you're full of shit and you're just trying to run away from your responsibilities by using my hot sister as an excuse. So to that I say, fuck you, and fuck yourself, and die. In which point it is more plausible that, okay, maybe this guy is getting into this for bad reasons. Yeah, so yeah. Again, I may be oversimplifying certain things or misremembering certain things, but yeah. Next up, we got Parasite. Damn good film. Very suspenseful, very darkly funny, very very hashtag deep. Like, I'd say it's a very good balance of being a film studies art movie while also being an entertaining art movie. So yeah. Kiki's Delivery Service. Easily my favourite Studio Ghibli film. I really like it. It's very heartwarming. Okay, this may be an unintentional theme, that a lot of the films here are very heartwarming in a way. Yeah, maybe some of which unintentionally so, but I guess we'll see. Next up, I got Princess Mononoke. Again, it's a good one. It's very mature and action-packed and epic and grand and, portentous, but also in a good way. So, yeah. I hope I'm using the word portentous in the right way, by the way. Like, when I say portentous, I mean, like carrying itself with a sense of great import, for lack of a better word, I suppose. Next up, we got Tokyo Godfathers. And I got a story for you, because it is a really good film. It's a Christmas film about these three homeless bums, and, about these three homeless people who find an abandoned baby on Christmas, and the film follows the three protagonists' sort of assorted misadventures in trying to get the baby back to their parents. And one funny thing from this film, except from the fact that it is also very funny on its own, is that one of the three bums is at least implied to be, is either a trans woman or a cross-dresser, but for argument's sake, I'm going to assume they're a trans woman, because I happened to watch that film with, I suppose, a person I know, to put it that way, who also ended up revealing themselves to be very transphobic, but that person didn't misgender the trans lady in the film. So yeah, granted, maybe she just didn't know. Maybe she just thought, oh, well, of course she looks a little fucked up, it's animation, innit? Maybe that was her, maybe that was her thought process, who knows. Anyway. Next up, we got Elf. I mean, funny film. Good stuff. I'm surprised they're still selling merchandise of that film. Like literally, I'm looking off to the side of the table where I'm at. I have some, elf-themed tissue wipes. And I even remember them selling elf merchandise at the card factory I worked at last year. So, yeah. Wow, I can't believe it's already been a year since I did that. My goodness, the things you remember doing a year ago. I wonder if anyone else is having that thought about me right now. If you know, you know. Next up, we got Azier and I, which I may or may not have mentioned on this channel before. It's a really good it's a really good documentary about basically this Spanish actor and his friend, who is like an extremist, like separatist, part of the Basque separatist movement of Spain. And the documentary basically follows like his life and his friendship with Asier, and also talking about like the various political goings on in Spain at the time. So yeah, it's really damn good. I like to think that if I made a documentary one day, that I'd like to make it in a similar style to what he was getting at. So yeah. Next up we got Die Hard. Does what it says on the tin in it. I again been watching the Kill James Bond podcast a lot. So yeah. But to which I say, yo, broke is, Die Hard is the best Christmas film. Woke is Die Hard is the best Western because of reasons. Because at the very least, it's more of a Western than it is a Christmas film in certain ways, but yeah. Anyway. Next up, we got Imposteur. It is a documentary about a, I want to say Algerian bloke who's a con man, and he conned this lily white family over in America into thinking that he was their long-lost child, and the documentary basically follows the various people involved, and that sort of thing. So yeah. Next up, we got Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's by the Coen brothers. Damn good film, very funny, very Okay, I'm going to mention it actually back to back with another film I have. So, I have Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and both of which are on this list for pretty similar reasons, alongside both being made by the Coen brothers. It's very darkly funny, but in terms of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou specifically, it has a very, of mice and men feel to it, in a way, but also a kind of farcical bent as well. So, yeah. Yeah. Damn good movie. And also there's some, funny twists as well that come up at times as well. But from what I remember, the film it follows George Clooney and his two mates who are prison buddies, and George Clooney is a con man, and the story follows their escape from prison, and then they're traversing across the states to find some hidden money stash that they had locked up somewhere. So yeah. Next up we got Django Unchained. And, okay, again, this isn't going to be a theme, but it will be a theme briefly. The next few films I'm going to be mentioning here are mostly westerns, so take that how you will. But yeah, Django Unchained. It's really cool, it's really solid, really stylish, it's really, it's really wildin' with it. Oh dear, is that Luna? I'll take care of that later. And yeah, the theme song is also incredibly dope. Next, we have Inglourious Basterds. Again, funny, but also portentous, but also cool, but also fun and stuff. And, you know what, I have some thoughts about Jared Bauer, without getting too in the weeds of it all. I agree with him on some things and disagree with him on others, but of the things I do agree with him, I really recommend his videos on Django Unchained and Inglourious Basterds, and specifically their dialectics about using the dialectics between the films with their commentary on using anti-intellectualism and intellectualism at different times in the same service of like anti-racism and critique and anti-fascism. So yeah, specifically, the main points of contrast being in Inglourious. In fact, not even just in the points of contrast, but also in the points of the literal Tarantino-verse lore. Like, Dr. Schultz in canon is a relative of Hans Landa. So yeah, that's very, very spicy. Especially considering the fact that there's the meme about how, wow, Christoph Waltz played a super racist dude and an anti-racist dude. What range? I know I'm sounding very cunty about it, but no, he does have range. But yeah, specifically with regards to Django Unchained and Inglourious Basterds, Schultz is primarily the intellectual sort of gentlemanly hero who or one of the heroes, I should say, who and his interactions with the Deep South are there to poke fun at the at the absurdity and the juvenility of racism. And on the flip side of that, in Inglourious Basterds, Hans Landa is portrayed as essentially a Nazi super genius, and and part of the irony and comedy and drama of the film comes from the fact that Hans Landa, this incredibly efficient, powerful, intelligent killer, gets upstaged by a group of hyper masculine macho, barely good enough to put on a passing Italian accent, gang of American thugs, basically. Yeah, or maybe thugs isn't the right word, but the point is that they're none too bright, to put it mildly. Anyway, next up we got the Dollars trilogy. That would be, For a Few Dollars More, Fistful of Dollars, and The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Again, they're all really cool for pretty much the same reasons. Lee Van Cleef is really dope. The El Indio theme is really awesome as well. And also Ecstasy of Gold. And here's another thing, I'm not sure if they'll tell you this, not a lot of people know this about what I know, but I've worked at Crystal Palace a little bit, and almost every time I've gone, before every game, before they open the doors to the public, they have the music thing blaring out Ecstasy of Gold, which, for those of you who don't know, is the theme that plays in the scene in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where Tuco is running through the graves and looking for the Arch Stanton grave. So yeah. Next up, we have Ex Machina, and call this a foreshadowing moment, because in terms of other sci-fi films that may or may not be as good as Blade Runner, Ex Machina is certainly one of them. And also I very much recommend the video by Sean about the ending. Not a huge amount to say, other than it's quite cool. Next up we have... Okay, I have two titles for this, just because I've forgotten the title of the film. But it's either called Don't Blink, or Blink Twice. I've forgotten which title it applies to, but I'll flash it up on screen, so don't worry about it. Don't Blink is a more recent film. It is essentially a suspense thriller about this woman and her friend who work as waitresses, and they end up as eventually talking to this big, rich businessman mogul, who then invites them and some of his other mates and their girlfriends to his private island resort where they can come and take a load off and have a fun time. And then things happen. I guess I'm not going to mention any of the triggering stuff, but, again, if you want to watch the film, I highly, 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 highly recommend it. But, trigger warning, there's a lot of assault. Of a certain kind that people might find distressing, to put it that way. So, yeah. It is very interesting. I have, multiple hours worth of voice notes analysing the film, but I haven't been able to sift through it yet because of the reasons. But hopefully one day I'll get to it. Ballad of Buster Scruggs, already briefly mentioned, but long story short, it is a anthology film made up of 5 or 6 short films, and they're all varying levels of funny and sad. My favourite ones are the first one with the titular Buster Scruggs in the White Hat. There's also the one with First Time, and I've forgotten the others, but I do remember really liking them. Next up, we got Anger Management. Basically, the plot of the film basically boils down to Adam Sandler gets tortured by Jack Nicholson and some various angry people into eventually growing a spine. So, yeah. Next up, we have the Kingsman series. Not a fat lot to say, other than it's damn good and the action's really solid. So, yeah. Then we have the Carry On series. For those of you who don't know, the Carry On films are basically a series of, British sex comedy films from back in the olden days. And, they may not necessarily have been child-friendly, but I watched them as a kid, and that turned out great. Wink. But yeah, to narrow it down for anyone who may or may not be interested in watching any of them, my favourite ones were Carry On Spying, which is pretty solid. And by the way, kill James Bond! Please do Carry On Spying! I will do multiple subscriptions to the Patreon-acy, if you do. If that's even possible. Then there's Carry On Up the Jungle, I think it was. Or Carry On Something Jungle. That was relatively funny. Carry On Henry. Yeah. It's about the 2 wives that Henry VIII never had. So yeah. Not garlic, a small barrel of the onion family, extensively used by the French. Carry On Dick, which was, I think it was Carry On Dick, about Carry On Dick Turpin, the highwayman, stand and deliver. Or, that effing impossible, is another thing. No. What else? Oh yeah, there's also, Carry On Girls. I don't remember hugely about that one, other than it had a beauty pageant, I think. Carry On Camping. I remember finding that one quite funny back in the day. There was a lot of full frontal in that one. Carry On Abroad, about a questionably racist depiction of a Spanish dude, but it's still funny. I think it's either Carry On Cleo or Carry On Caesar, which is the one that was about Cleopatra. I remember that one being quite cool. Yeah, I think that was all of the best ones off the top of my head. So yeah. Elvis. Yes, that Elvis. I recently saw that Elvis biopic, and I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah. Next up we have... Oh boy. Next up we have Misery. Oh boy, I hope I don't vomit. I almost felt something coming, but then it didn't come. I sure would like something to not come, but that's neither here nor there. Where was I? Yes, Misery. Damn good film. Very suspenseful, very horrific, very, darkly funny in a way, because part of the, it's like, okay, spoiler alert, plot twist spoiler incoming. Part of the... Okay, so the plot of the film is, James Caan plays this famous author who eventually gets in a car crash and stranded in the middle of nowhere, but he gets saved by a random lady who lives out in a cabin in the woods, and, or not a cabin, it is an actual house, to be fair, but she, for all intents and purposes, lives in the middle of nowhere, and, what was it? Oh yeah. And basically, the twist, or the early twist, I should say, is that the fangirl who saved him really is his number one fan, and she gets obsessive and a little bit controlling, to put it mildly. And so, part of the comedy comes from the fact that whenever she, loses her mind, sometimes she'll be really, cold and calm and kind and sweetly, and other times she'll be rageful and wrathful and angry and loud and shouty, and so that can be funny sometimes. And also one of my favourite moments was a moment where after the evil lady clubs Mr. Protagonist Man's leg in, she goes out to the front garden to move leaves or something, and she waves at him from his room upstairs "Hi, pumpkin!" And then he flips her off, and she's "Such a kidder," and then goes back to what she was doing before. So yeah. So yeah. Villains! I made a semi-review of that film, so I won't spend too much time for it, for no other reason than I have been talking for a long time and would like to stop talking soon, so that I can let my voice rest. But yes, it is very good, and very funny, and very suspenseful for a bit, but also fun to rewatch. A Fish Called Wanda. Again, very farcical, sort of old-school British comedy. Another thing that I find quite funny about it, not necessarily about the film itself, but something that would become funny with age, is the fact that the main love interest as the film goes on turns out to be between Jamie Lee Curtis and John Cleese. And this ends up becoming funny with time, because Jamie Lee Curtis is a really good trans ally, and John Cleese is very not to a degree. So I've been told. Allegedly, let's say. I'll flip up some, like, news stories of him being transphobic if any exist, but, yeah, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, it's a good movie. Next up, we got Megamind. No, it's really good. It's a really solid superhero film, yeah. And it's really funny and stuff and goodness. Next up, we got the Cornetto trilogy, which is also really funny and cool and goodness. And sweet Jesus Christ, I would give my left testiculator to see the Kill James Bond crew review the Hot Fuzz and rank it on the Scum system. So, yeah. And last, but certainly not least, we are on the 50th film, and it is Nimona. Also, the entire ass film was released by Netflix for free on the YouTubulars. And apparently the creators of the film were cool with that. I mean, if they are cool with it, then cool, good for them. And also good for me as a consumer, because I like that they made the film more widely available. At the same time, I fail to see how much revenue could be made by that, by just putting it on YouTube, but whatever, it's cool. So yeah. Yeah. And also I really like the aesthetic of Nimona as well. Like, it really does, like, do a very cool blending of a sort of medieval cyberpunk type beat, like a medieval knight cyberpunk type aesthetic. That's pretty cool. So yeah, that is about it for the time being. I hope you enjoyed me yapping like a crazy person for the last number of minutes. Take care now, bye bye then, and I will talk to you later. Take care all.